night. Trump gets his travel ban. Qatar under quarantine.
The self-sufficiency was always a priority for the government.
And smashing the glass wall of sound. British Prime Minister Theresa May forged an alliance with Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party in a desperate bid to regain control of her government after her party was decimated in a snap election. They will allow May to win a clear majority vote in Parliament, pass a budget, and make it easier to negotiate Brexit. But the deal was costly. Northern Ireland negotiated more than $1 billion in extra funding in return for the support. Philando Castile's mother settled today with the city of St. Anthony Village, Minnesota, over her son's shooting death during a police traffic stop last July. The school cafeteria worker was shot and killed by Geronimo Yanez after telling the officer he was carrying a gun in his car. Yanez was acquitted of manslaughter and other charges earlier this month. At least 10 people are dead and 93 are missing after a massive landslide in China buried a village in a mountainous region of the Sichuan province. Heavy rains also caused 367 houses to collapse and left 90,000 people homeless in the Hunan province. The devastation from the storms is expected to cause an estimated $290 billion in direct economic losses. A court in Madrid has ordered the body of artist Salvador Dali to be exhumed to provide DNA samples for a paternity suit. 61-year-old Pilar Abel filed a lawsuit in 2015, claiming that her mother and the artist had a secret affair in the 1950s, and Dali was her biological father. A religious liberty case involving a Colorado-based baker who refused to make a cake for a same-sex wedding in 2012 is headed for the Supreme Court. A legal brief filed to the Supreme Court says that Jack Phillips' faith requires him to, quote, use his artistic talents to promote only messages that align with his religious beliefs. Justices will take up the question of whether business owners can cite their religious beliefs as a reason to refuse service. The Supreme Court today lifted the block on President Trump's travel ban, which means that travelers from 6 majority Muslim nations can now be blocked from entering the country, except for those with legitimate ties to American people, businesses, or schools. The White House claimed a major win. The ruling ends a 5-month holdup that undercut the ban's reason for existing. Over the course of those 5 months, there have been no major terror incidents in the U.S., let alone attacks carried out by foreigners from the 6 named countries. And there are big questions about how the ban, and the court's exception, will be implemented. Justice Clarence Thomas, who favored restoring the ban in full, wrote a dissent calling the solution unworkable, noting that it places a huge burden on the government employees who will have to decide which visitors should get a waiver. Thomas also predicted a flood of lawsuits about who has a bona fide reason for coming to America and who doesn't. That confusion will only add to the perception that the United States isn't an easy place to visit, and it's already repelling a group critical to the American economy: tourists. Global travelers suddenly seem to be rethinking coming to the U.S. Analysts call it the Trump slump. Patrick Surrey is the chief data scientist at Hopper, an airfare analysis website.
Whenever the executive order was in the news cycle, it led to a pretty significant drop in the number of people searching for flights to the U.S.
Hopper scrutinizes billions of priced airline itineraries every day to gauge trends. Some of the countries that send the most tourists to the United States, including China, Brazil, and South Korea, saw steep drop-offs in ticket searches.
Late in January, we saw declines of up to 17% on a daily basis from what we would have expected. Interestingly, even when we saw actions against the restrictions, so when the court ordered a restraining order, when the restraining order was upheld, those also caused big negative responses in terms of search.
The travel ban officially goes into effect on Thursday. The Supreme Court will hear arguments about its constitutionality next fall. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is trying to force a vote on his Obamacare replacement bill by the end of the week. And today, the bill he drafted in secret was dealt a very public setback. According to the Congressional Budget Office, there would be 15 million more uninsured Americans by the end of next year. And by 2026, it would be 22 million more uninsured, for a total of 49 million. That's only marginally better than the deeply unpopular House bill, and way worse than what would happen if Congress left Obamacare alone. The closer the Senate gets to a vote, the more uncomfortable life is going to get for the wavering GOP senators who will decide the bill's fate.
Now that all the secret dealing is done, and the Senate healthcare bill actually exists, the future of American medicine comes down to about 10 white people in the building behind me. They're the Republican senators who are sitting on the fence, who haven't decided if they're going to vote yes on this bill yet. Senate Republican leadership can only afford to lose 2 votes, or else this bill's not going to pass. So what's it like to be one of these Republicans under all that pressure? Let's look at Dean Heller, the senator from Nevada. On Friday, Heller said he was thinking of voting no on the health care bill.
I'm announcing today that in this form, I will not support it.
That set off efforts from everyone on all sides of the health care debate to try and get inside his head. Hillary Clinton won Nevada in 2016. So groups opposed to the health care bill are trying to appeal to that self-preservation part of Heller's brain, the part that wants to stay in the Senate.
This is going to be a big bill.
Groups like the AARP and other progressive groups, they're running ads on TV trying to urge voters to call him and tell him they don't want him to vote for this bill. Meanwhile, allies of President Trump are trying to appeal to the fear center of Heller's brain, the part that worries that something really bad might happen to you if you vote against this bill. The Senate leadership is trying to appeal to the part of all Senate brains that like to be part of a team. Mitch McConnell is actively tweaking this bill. He actually released a new version of it today, one that he hopes will be more friendly in a we're all one big Republican family kind of way. We saw something pretty similar to this back when the House was dealing with the health care bill. President Trump did his fear thing, and he changed some minds. The bill finally passed.
That's the group.
But then Trump turned on those Republicans, calling the House bill mean in private meetings. So now senators who are on the fence about this bill might be listening to that little center in their brain way in the back, the part that says, when it comes to health care, you're on your own.
For 3 weeks now, the tiny Gulf state of Qatar has been blockaded by its neighbors. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain, and the UAE, who issued a 13-point list of demands last week. In a statement yesterday, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said those requirements, quote, will be very difficult to meet. And that's an understatement. Their demands include shutting down the Al Jazeera media network, curbing ties with Iran, and closing a Turkish army base. If Qatar doesn't comply by July 1st, which it can't, the countries will continue to restrict its access to land, sea, and air routes indefinitely. Seb Walker went to Qatar to see how people there are dealing with the embargo.
This is how the wealthiest citizens in the world hold a street protest. Every evening at 5 o'clock, Qataris climb into their luxury sports cars and do a slow drive up and down Doha's skyscraper-lined Corniche, waving flags and pictures of their leader.
When the issues happen, we put the most stickers, and as well as everyone here has a flag.
To show what exactly? To show...
We are showing we are supporting our Amir. That's exactly what we are needing.
It may look good-natured, but this is a Qatari display of anger. Qatar's GDP is nearly $130,000 per capita. That's the highest in the world by $20,000. Its riches are based on abundant natural gas reserves, but Qatar doesn't actually produce very much else. It's hosting the World Cup in 2022, But almost everything needed to build the stadia is imported, even the workers. The blockade could be crippling, though officials insist they're still on schedule.
We are going ahead normally with our plan, with all the project team, our main contractors, subcontractors, with the availability of our materials to build, and whatever that we need, we do have the different sources.
Construction aside, the crisis is worrying for a population almost totally dependent on imports for its survival. But there's one man in Qatar who's been waiting for this day.
The first phase is 400,000 square meter. The second one is another 400,000 square meter. The first phase consists of 40,000 sheep and almost 7,000 goats.
So, I'm sorry, did you say 40,000 sheep?
Yeah, we do have 40,000 under one roof, and this is considered the largest Awasi sheep farm in the world.
Ramez Al Khayat is CEO of Power International Holding, one of the largest construction firms in Qatar. This is the company's latest and most ambitious project yet. Building a dairy farm in the desert so big it can help make Qatar food secure within the next 12 months.
We sell the sheep, we sell the goats, we sell slaughtered, and we sell live, and we sell for breeding as well as all the dairy products which comes out from this farm. We sell it in that area as well.
It's 115 degrees in the shade, but Ramez says they have everything they need here to rear livestock on a massive scale. In fact, the farm is expecting new arrivals soon. 4,000 cows are to be flown in by plane in what's thought to be the largest transfer of its kind ever seen.
So you're flying in cows from another country?
We are flying actually from USA, from Australia, and from Germany. This is the first order.
How?
But this is for the first
Qatar
plan.
Airways?
Yeah, we already contracted with Qatar Airways to do that.
How about the water for a dairy farm? Is that something that's a challenge?
There is plenty of water here.
Yeah.
This is something you don't have to worry about.
According to Ramez, Qatar's government recognized the need to be self-sufficient in food production several years ago and came up with a strategy for its agricultural sector to follow. Ramez says the current crisis has simply accelerated the plans.
The self-sufficiency was always a priority for the government, and there was always a plan. So it was not a shock to close the border.
The company has hired Irish farmer John Doré to run the operation. He wanted to show us how they're making grass for the animals.
The seed is in a dark area.
Okay.
You apply moisture in a dark area and the seed gradually germinates. You can see the sprouts coming on it here.
They're growing it all indoors, hydroponically, and then feeding it to the imported cows on a conveyor belt.
And at the end of 7 days,
This is just 7 days growth.
This is 7 days growth.
It must take a lot of water to grow all this.
It's actually the most efficient way of growing green forage in this sort of an environment. You'll only use 1/10 of the water in here compared to outside.
With the US now starting to criticize Saudi Arabia's actions over the blockade, it seems like Riyadh's strategy could be starting to backfire.
The blockade is an advantage for the country for the time being, for the food security. Everybody is working aggressively. This is how I take it. Within 1 year, we will be able to export the product outside of Qatar.
Like many jails across the country, California correctional facilities have been replacing in-person visitation with video calls, cutting inmates off from their only real contact with their families.
I do want to say,
tomorrow, Governor Jerry Brown could sign a bill that would end the practice, but inmate advocates aren't convinced he will. He's vetoed similar measures before. Antonia Hilton went to Solano County, where some prisoners can see their loved ones, and some can't.
Deborah Cudmore's 2 children are often in and out of jail. Today, she's visiting her son Darren at Claybank Jail in Solano County. Her son is only a few yards away, but they talk through a screen.
How you doing? Hi, baby.
Increasingly, Skype-like video visitations are replacing traditional in-person and glass visits. It's estimated over 600 correctional facilities in 46 states now use video visitation.
You look like you are putting on weight. You look good. You're my handsome son.
It's like only a year, like, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm trying to take away like years and years of your time.
It's hard, Darren. It's not easy. This ain't easy for nobody, you know what I mean? 28, 25 seconds, babe. Love you.
I love you.
2 of Solano County's 3 jails ended in-person visits in 2014. Sheriff Tom Ferreira supported the transition to video. Like many sheriffs, he believes it saves officers time and reduces conflict in the jail.
It's safer for the officers and it takes less staff. 1, if you're doing a video visit, you're not going to be able to introduce contraband into the jail. 2 is you're not moving the inmate. So if you can imagine moving the inmate all the way from the jail, and this one's quite a large facility.
What do you say to people or families who feel like the implementation of this technology has mostly served the staff and the sheriff, and for us, it now has made our lives and our relationships less personal?
That's a difficult question to answer because I see it so much on the other side where I've seen the good that it's done. So if that was really, really the mainstream thought, we would be getting all kinds of complaints and grievances and this and that, and we're not.
But it's also clearly about money. Solano's video provider, iWebVisit, promises the sheriff at least 15% of their profits for the inmate services. Families have 2 options: pay $9 for every 30-minute call at home, or drive into the jail and call for free. When you were making that cost-benefit analysis about this technology a few years ago, how much of the appeal was the profit from video visitation?
0. Profit's a funny word, but we need money to go back in the inmate welfare fund so we can fund some special programs for the inmates.
Could you run your services if you made 0 on it? All of those services that it goes to?
No, I don't think so. I'd have to reduce them. So it really is for the benefit of the inmates.
Prison communications is a $1.3 billion industry financed by the fees inmate families pay. Some corporations charge as much as $1 per minute for calls. Studies show more than 1 in 3 families go into debt trying to stay in touch.
This, for me, is the most glaring case of market failure I have ever seen in my 18 years as a regulator.
Mignon Clyburn is a commissioner at the FCC who's fought to regulate the cost of prison communications. Consumers might say, you know, the families of inmates have been paying for phone calls, paying for gas to go visit for years. Why do I care if they're now also paying for video visitation?
So when you use your communications devices, you've got competition. You can go to a number of providers, but these inmates and their families, and I hate to use this word, they are literally captive. More than 70% of the local facilities that have instituted this model, they no longer have or allow in-person visit.
How do you make the case to people who are unconnected to incarceration that they should care about how people who are connected to it stay in touch?
You are paying every month, every year to keep this model that is broken intact. You don't think it affects you, but that child who acts out, that might escalate. That person who comes home, they might act out if they don't adjust. These people don't live on Mars. They live in our communities.
We thank you for a new day, for new mercy, Lord God. We thank you for your loving kindness, God, for your faithfulness.
It's Mother's Day, and after a trip to church with her grandkids, Israel and Isaac, the family is back home for a remote visit, this time with Deborah's daughter Liz, who is at another Solano facility.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you, baby. I love you.
I love you too.
Where's Isaac?
He's coming.
Hey, Mom. Hey, baby.
Hey, Mom.
I love you.
I love you too.
It's hectic. 3 people have 30 minutes to catch up.
Well, I'm doing this campaigning thing for president at school.
Sit down.
Yeah?
You gotta tell me.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama with that.
Do you mind me asking, what is this like for both of you, communicating through this?
This is hard. I don't like this. I'd rather see her face to face.
What's it like for you, Liz?
I just want to hold him. I just want to hug my mom.
Last night, Beyoncé once again dominated the BET Music Awards,
Beyonce!
winning Album of the Year and more awards than any male artist. But apart from performers, women don't get much recognition in the music industry because they're barely even represented. In music production, women make up less than 5% of producers and engineers, meaning almost every song you hear is produced by men. A group of female artists sat down with Mary H.K. Choi to explain why.
Why were you so cold? Let the truth be told.
What are some of like the politics inherent in getting a producer credit?
What happens in today's form is a lot of artists don't write a lot of their songs, and majority of them that are more like the Patti Smith, Chrissy Hines, they're at home rocking out and don't need anybody's approval. And so they don't come out. But then the ones that do come out are the ones that want credit for things that they haven't done.
Well, the few times when I've done sessions like for other people, you show up and like, I think, for example, like at least me, like I think people more perceive me as an artist than a producer, and people will actually not believe that I do it because of this.
Why do you think it's important to just own everything that you make? Because you very pointedly do.
You know, there is that level of wanting to show that you know exactly what you're doing because you are female and you're going to be held at a higher standard. So when you go into those environments, especially if it's out of your comfort zone, you want to have your shit together.
Do you ever feel like an onus to be like, I have to level the playing field in this very specific way?
If I don't find them good musicians, and I don't feel as though they deserve to get raised up more than someone else. I view myself in the same way. I'd rather be in someone's top 20 producers, I'd rather be the 20th person than someone say, you're my favorite female producer.
How many times has someone been like, you're my favorite female producer?
All the time.
Yeah.
777 times you threw me off the bridge we built together.
Is that I feel as though I have to overcompensate. So I'm very public about like, this is music technology I'm into, I've done tutorials, I let people see all my sessions. And yet to some degree, when I look at myself do that, I'm like, I shouldn't have to. Yeah. I mean, sharing knowledge is fine. I do everything.
And it's annoying because dudes won't share knowledge. Like if I'm in a session with someone, I'm like, oh, what are you using or whatever? And they're like, don't want you to know.
But also I think they have a community. Like when you see Rick Rubin in footage with like Jay-Z and Pharrell and all those other producers, my first thought was, well, how come females aren't doing that?
I've actually been thinking there should be like a music union or like a women's music union or something. You know what I mean? Something where it's like where we can recreate like what they have.
How important are the Grammys to y'all?
Accolades, I love those. Give me a trophy, I'll take it. You know, because it gives me an opportunity to get in front of a bunch of people and tell them how I really feel.
I said, hey, what's going on?
Okay, so because I tried to apply for Producer of the Year for the Grammys last year, and they wouldn't let me because I hadn't worked on anyone else's album. I would have had to have another artist hire me, and I would have had to have like produced like a track on another successful record.
I think it can be discouraging if a young girl has aspirations of wanting to go into production and looks at the Grammys and goes, well, there's no one that's female and there's no one that looks like me. Why in the hell would I think that I can be successful in that arena?
How high does your pain threshold have to be in order to do this?
I think you have to pretty thick skin generally to be in the entertainment industry.
Especially with the internet comments, they're brutal.
It's like to even defend ourselves, we have to like, you know, get death threats and all this shit, and it's just like.
How often do you get death threats?
Well, I've disabled everything for like a year now, so I don't know.
So do you think that the press is largely complicit in.
The press is fucking so complicit. Sorry, no offense.
Say more things.
Vice.
No, none taken. Go
Like,
on.
okay, I'll say this. If I said the things about male artists that they say about me, like, I wouldn't have a career.
It's not just male journalists though, because I feel like patriarchy has no gender in that sense.
Yeah, no, female journalists in that too.
Jesus, this is all really bleak, you guys.
It's really easy to feel undermined, and maybe we have to pay a higher price than our male counterparts, but we're doing that, and then the next generation may not have to as much.
We just need to focus on the positives, just figure out who we are as artists, and just figure out what your success is, and just go for it. That's it. Don't be afraid, just go.
That's Vice News Tonight for Monday, June 26th.